Well, happy 250th birthday, America. Yeah, we made it.
Yay.
So good.
Such babies.
So awesome. Such babies. Well, that is kind of true relative to other nations, but it feels like a long time to me.
is a long
because
time.
I haven't been around that long.
That's true.
And as such, this is a 4th of July podcast. And my goal is for this not to be fluff, but to actually be like genuine, go deep, talk about America, freedom, responsibilities, all that kind of stuff on the Furlo Capital Real Estate Podcast, where we dive into the intricacies of passive real estate investing and the freedoms that have enabled us to do that. And our mission is to equip people to invest wisely in both property and people who live in this blessed United States, so that together we can build wealth while improving housing. I'm James, and this is my American wife, Jessie.
Yeehaw!
Oh my gosh, is that what it means to be American?
I don't know. Like, I don't know why country and American goes together.
Cowboys?
There's like different
it's a very
subsets
American thing
of America, I feel like. This is like totally a tangent, but there's like the all-American, like military, serving my country, but then there's like the yeehaw cowboy, rancher rodeo.
Well, so I hear you, but
American.
Like there are military folks in all other countries. So
yeah, okay.
Whereas like when I think about cowboys, I don't know if I think there were cowboys in Mexico.
Yeah, yep. Vaqueros.
Cool. But I also feel like that was somehow different than like
like
rodeo country.
Yeah, it was more like rancher as opposed to like cowboy. I don't know.
I don't know. That's interesting.
I think of like Wild West.
It's all good.
You know, like developing the country and moving west and
looking for gold, all the stuff,
all the things.
Yeah, I can get behind that. Yeah, well, there's a lot of American ingenuity, spirit type of stuff.
Subculture.
It's all good. But one of the most radical things, watch this transition, that the U.S. did differently than a lot of other countries is enable the idea of owning land.
Oh.
For pretty much everybody.
Sure.
It's pretty awesome.
Do other countries not do that?
Well,
I don't know. I guess I just assumed that other countries.
So we're talking about this. So I broke this thing into 4 parts. Told you, this isn't just 7 things about the...
Okay, here we go.
That the 4th of July taught me.
It's not just shooting off fireworks.
Yeah, no. I mean, we're going to do that too. But so I want to talk about what kind of how that started. Because back in 1776, when this place was started, again, 250 years ago, it wasn't just a political thing that went down. It was also economic, right? Actually, that was a huge driver of it was this whole taxation without representation was like a piece of it.
Yeah, it was like the whole driving point, I feel like, for...
I mean, it was pretty significant.
Yeah,
totally. And actually, Locke, I think that's how you say his name. Before Jefferson changed it up, the line used to be life, liberty, and property. You could... instead of the pursuit of happiness.
Pursuit of happiness, yeah.
And so Jefferson...
Life, liberty, and property.
Dang, yeah, right? That was was what it was about. That you had the rights to pursue those things. And because land ownership was just... It worked slightly differently in England. And but the big thing about land ownership is that it provides self-determination, right? There's no king, there's no landlord, there's no permission... for the most part. And that's what people like, you have your own house. Like, man, if I want to build something,
you had
a reason, you can do it.
Your own rights to do what you wanted.
You want to change out some fixtures? Cool. You want to paint? Cool. In theory, you want to build something, apply for the permits, like you can do it. Like it allows there's just a sense of, I can quote, do whatever I want.
Yeah, but initially I imagine a bunch of those infrastructures didn't exist.
Oh,
obviously they weren't like HOAs and...
Oh, dude, thankfully. Well, so here's what's interesting, right? When the Homestead Act of 1862 was passed, you could get 160 acres after you spent 5 years of improvement on it. So they'd give you 160 acres and say if you spend 5 years making it, quote, better, which I don't fully know what that meant, it's yours.
Or building stuff on it.
Yeah, exactly. And so they actually gave away, I think that's the right word, land. 270 million acres. Which is about 10% of the entire U.S.
Who? The government?
The government, yeah. Because they were like, we want to inspire, we want to enable, we want to
Did the
help
government
people.
Own the land?
Yeah, because that was it was just government, it was just unassigned. And unassigned equals, the government has it, essentially. Yeah, and so the government's job was to protect that deal, not to just broker it. And
Makes sense.
yeah, not to be the arbiter of it. Obviously, things have gotten complicated just in the last 250 years. It's not quite as it is definitely not Wild West.
Sure.
As
There's
much
lots of rules
anymore. There could still be some of that.
Yeah.
So again, this was different because in England, property was often descended through aristocracy.
That's true.
Right? You had land barons and that kind of thing.
Yeah, if you came from that family, you were part of the family ownership
Correct.
of
and if you
an
didn't,
estate.
man, it was super hard.
Yeah. Was
own
there a
something.
process for purchasing land if you didn't have it?
Probably. But I have a hunch it was just the problem that England specifically dealt with is they just didn't have a lot of it physically.
Sure.
And so
It was
all
already
taken
divided up. Yeah.
Whereas the US it was
wide open.
Wide open. So it's man, we can get after this. And to a large part that's still true, though that's obviously getting harder in bigger cities because everyone owns everything.
Sure.
But it's still a thing. And so the deed that was, in some ways, creating the deed was this Declaration of Independence for individuals. So that was as opposed to peasants back in the day, where they had it was the same soil, but it was just a completely different relationship to their future. And obviously,
meaning what?
So you would have these land barons who then hire peasants, and they just
they didn't own it. They worked it.
They worked it. That was their job,
it.
and they would get maybe a fraction of whatever the proceeds or the fruits of it. But there was no ownership component to it, and no hope of ownership because you never got paid enough to even remotely do it, and there wasn't a lot of it. There was even if you could, it's not for sale.
So once it was in the United States, did that generational or familial ownership kind of continue at all? Some of that still exists where we can will our properties to children and grandchildren.
I think the big thing
less so.
is there's a lot. There's a lot more land, more options. B, the price of land to your income was a lot closer back then, even today. And I would say C, there was this mindset of, oh no, if you wanted to get it, you can do it. Work hard, save up, totally be yours. You can get a loan, make it all happen.
And that's
there was a desire to do it.
Yeah, that also was one of the whole premises of leaving Europe, coming here was we're our own country, we're our own selves, we set our own parameters, and part of that is we own our own land and company.
That's a big piece of it.
Freedoms and whatever.
Yeah, I remember one of the things on our honeymoon, we went to Paris, and people dressed super nice. Remember that?
Yep.
But one of the comments that someone made, they're like, well, yeah, but they're not buying houses.
Right.
And they don't actually have nice cars. So they
live in tiny apartments with no cars.
So they invested in their clothes and eating out and lifestyle stuff as opposed to inland because it's just not a thing.
Right.
And that was, we're like,
strange.
Oh, yeah. In the
I was
US,
I guess that makes sense. You just prioritize different.
Yeah, totally.
Expenses.
All right, part 2. There are 3 freedoms that real estate requires, or at least investing requires. Number 1 is you got to have, this should be no shock, the freedom to own.
Yep.
Okay, so that's property rights, right? It's recorded, it's enforceable, it's transferable. This is something, I've got some friends, they live in Uganda, and it is causing a massive headache because they don't have that level of property right protection. As a matter of fact, we have title insurance.
Yeah.
And that exists because we take it seriously. And they don't. I kid you not, they are currently going to the upper echelons of the government to try to resolve this property issue. Because there's one guy, he's trying to, who's sharing with me, there's 40 different landowners that he's he'd just go in and be like, oh yeah, I just leased this. That's not yours to lease.
From whom?
Yeah. And he'll be like, no, I'm sorry. He will lease it to someone else as if he owns it. And then they come in and they start working the land and the actual owners come out and
what are you doing?
What you doing? But they don't have an infrastructure for handling this. Outside of you got to take it to court and that judge turns out is friends with that dude who's causing the trouble. And again, it's, we have this infrastructure that's set up. And apparently too, I was reading, there's this stat that there's $9.3 trillion of what they call dead capital in developing nations. And these are assets that people hold, but they can't legally leverage or do anything with. And that's a similar thing, like where you'll see it where like there another guy, also Uganda, he bought it, but he bought it, paid money for it, but he still can't quite develop it because it's going through this, okay, now it is actually yours process.
Oh, weird.
It's just very like
getting it recorded is even a whole process.
Or at least getting others to recognize it. Recording's a weird, that's a...
Strange.
Yeah.
Not a thing.
Freedom number 2 that real estate investing requires, you're going to love this one, it's the freedom to fail. I actually think this is important. So we have bankruptcy law, which means that you can lose everything and try again.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy. So in a lot of countries, there's what they call like debtor's prison, or you get permanent shame because you went bankrupt.
Sure.
And I mean, you read about this in the Bible where it's like, man, you get into debt, they literally throw you in jail until you can pay it off, which you're like,
how does that work? You're not actually earning money. Or you're an indentured servant for the rest of your life.
Right. That's one of those things. Whereas in the US, it's like, no, if you dig too big of a hole, it's cool. No one's going to let you borrow money for a while, but we're willing to wipe the slate clean and start over. And that's a huge deal. That means that you can take a risk. You can try stuff because, worst case scenario, I got to wait 7 years before I can start over.
That is an interesting perspective. It in a way,
that's what I'm going for.
Yeah, in a way, it seems very lenient and almost like, why would you want to do that? Give people, but it's also like, no, it gives people a chance. Like,
right.
There's this concept of like, we realize this is difficult and this is hard. You're going to invest in it. You're going to put your life and work and energy into it, and you may fail, and that's okay. The goal is like to keep building, to keep growing, to keep improving,
to keep trying.
Just like, weird.
Yeah, you want to, by having that safety net, you're willing to take those risks.
Sure.
Yeah, you're willing to fail. I think that's huge.
Wow.
And that is one of those, I don't know if it's uniquely American, but it's very American in how that works. And I think there's a lot of high net worth individuals, if you talk to them, they all have some sort of failure that they've gone through and that they've learned from. And it's cool. Again, there's not necessarily shame around it. As a matter of fact, people want to hear those stories, and that helps. You hear that. Some people they go, be vulnerable when you're sharing, and then some people have taken it to the other extreme, all they share is the bad stuff. And you're like, okay,
there's a balance.
It's gotta be good. Okay.
One last thought. What it makes me think of is inventors or inventions as well, and that concept of you're gonna have whatever it is, thousands of failures before you hit that success, because it takes work and effort and energy. But we've set up our systems to encourage that, and to push people to try it and to fail and to get better.
Totally, yeah, absolutely. Freedom number 3 is the freedom to choose your counterparty. I think this is important. So you can create contracts with someone else, and those are enforced by courts, not necessarily by kings. And you can choose who your tenants are. You can choose who your partners are. You can choose who your lenders are. You can choose your exit strategy on who am I ultimately going to sell this place to within legal limits for all this stuff. And you can even choose how you're going to hold title, whether or not it's an LLC or a trust or personally, whatever. There are tons of different ways that you can structure things and who you work with that I think enable this thing to work. You're not just forced to head down a single track. There are some countries where the government can just simply take the property.
Yeah.
They can change the terms or reassign.
Which, that exists in the United States.
Yeah, we have eminent domain, and we'll talk a little bit more about those kind of things in a little bit. But at least in that one, it's you got to pay fair market value for it. Whereas there are other countries.
They just take it?
It's funny. There's one, I was in Indonesia, and we were in a village, and the village had a really valuable resource that the government didn't know about. And they were like, you got to keep your mouth shut, because if the government finds out about this, they're just going to take it over.
Wow.
They don't care. And they'll just displace everybody and be done. And again, all my examples are Ugandan because I was there back in February.
True.
That was another example where there was a tribe. They were gold miners, and the Chinese were like, hey, we wouldn't mind having this gold. And so the government's like, cool, your land, go for it. The Chinese just came in with big trucks and tractors, kicked everybody out. they were like, oh, I guess this isn't our land. And now now they're in trouble. And
Weird.
The people who we were visiting are trying to help them figure this out and navigate this new reality of, this living, this, not only was it your, like what you did to earn money, but it was also where you lived, not an option anymore, totally displaced.
Wow.
And we don't have to that degree here. And so, now obviously some things can happen. Again, like that's the whole eminent domain gets in there type of stuff, but not nearly to that same crazy extent.
It sounds so corrupt on some level, but maybe that's just because I'm comparing it to the U.S. and it's like,
no,
that's not right.
I would put that in the not right, corrupt. Right. Well, and that's the thing, right? Because that is I hear what you're saying. It does definitely feel that way, but that's part of it. That's our culture. We ownership first. Ownership trumps everything else. What did they say? Ownership or possessions, 9/10 of the law, right? That's the whole, that's that saying kind of is rooted in that. And so when we hear that other stuff, we go, what? That's wrong. Even though there are totally other cultures and countries where it's like, no, it's all collective. Like we don't actually own anything.
And if you think about it, like the original colonies coming in and taking land that people were already on, also, like, we have a history there, too.
Yeah, but at least we weren't the government coming in and, like, we were foreign invaders, you know?
Sure.
That's a different deal.
It's a little different.
It's a little different.
Conquering different lands.
Which is also a thing, but totally different topic.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting, like, but those are the freedoms that that help, right? The freedom to own, the freedom to fail, and then to choose your own counterparty, who you're going to do business with. Okay. Part number 3. So what does this all mean? Right? And then we're going to talk about part 4 is like responsibility for it. But anyways, what this all means is that what this means is that you want to, usually we'll treat real estate as the vehicle, but really real estate is this right that we have. So instead of thinking of it as like, oh, it's this investment that I make to, to hit financial freedom, to grow my wealth, whatever, like in real estate's the way I'm doing it. It really goes like owning real estate is a fundamental piece of the United States. And I don't know if we have that like same side of respect. And so those rights, they require defense. Like we got to stand up for those rights. They also require stewardship, I think is important. And even if you're a passive investor, to some degree, it means you're delegating stewardship, which is fine and it's good, but you just got to recognize like, yeah, that's what I'm like, it's all undergirded by this like fundamental.
And you think that's more so with property and land than like other investments that you might make?
Yeah, I think so. Like owning stocks. Yeah, that feels, it's just different. Land is
like you're
different.
stewarding it, but land, well, often I think the difference is like the land is being used for other purposes, like people are living on it or there's a business on it.
Yeah.
Or it's producing some sort of resource. And so it's not just like this nebulous thing that's out there. Like it genuinely affects people's lives. What you do with it affects people's lives, which you could say with other resources
that's true
too.
For businesses
but
as well.
Sure.
But there's just land
something about
just
it
feels different. Yeah. I don't know if if I think I had time, I could put my finger on it.
Yeah.
Just love to hear that in the comments on why you think it's different. Okay. What this also means is that it has land and investing has had a historical hedge on inflation because it's just built into the founding of it. If you think about it, hard assets, they preserve their wealth across every crisis since 1776. Like it continues to go up. There's a stat that I found. It was the median price of a home in 1940 was like $209,000. That doesn't sound right. $2,900. That might be right if you include the entire U.S. I have a West Coast bias, so I'm like, oh, that's not right. And today it's like 420,000. Like it's substantial.
Yeah.
And again, that's not just appreciation. I mean, it is, but it's like it's this. The system is set up to preserve land value, and so it does, and that's one of the reasons why it is a hedge. Now, is it a perfect hedge against inflation? No, but it varies, but it definitely is trended with it.
Yeah,
which is cool. The other another thing that actually means is that there are second order threats that can erode that right and that ownership. So like rent control is one that causes a problem. It goes against this right of ownership, because now the government's stepping in and saying, no, we're not actually going to let you manage it the way that you want. And sometimes for good reason. Totally get it. And rent control is one where I actually think it goes against what they want it to do, but whatever. We do have the eminent domain, I think is another one. There are some zoning
That's where my head went, was like zoning law. Sounds like that, because they are restricting how you can use the property.
Yeah, which again, I think a lot of these rules are based in good ideas. Implementation can sometimes not be right, and I think sometimes people can be overzealous on what they're trying to do. But like that's the idea of like, well, we don't necessarily want a gas station on every single corner, maybe just certain ones. I totally get it. But also cool is you can apply for exemptions, and that's totally a thing. And I see those happen all the time. Unless you're a church trying to build in a country, that is not going to happen in Oregon. But that's a problem they're going to have to deal with. So let's see what else. So I thought I had one more, but I don't. And I just think it comes back to, like, these aren't just interesting policy conversations and debates. Like, these are rooted in this fundamental part of what makes America America is the right to own and to have the Wild West, the cowboy, do what you want within limits. And I think setting those limits and defining them, that's where the whole argument is. I do think there are people who fundamentally disagree with that. They don't think there should be any owners of land, and they think it all should just be public, because what they would say is land and ownership and living it's like air and water. We all need it. Sure, maybe you got to charge to provide it, but you can't say no to somebody. And so the easiest way to do it is to say, nope, we're gonna have, like with water, cities own all that, and yes, they charge to deliver it because it's not free, and they've decided to do it that way instead of through taxes. It's just a choice that they made. And I've heard the arguments of like, well, land ownership should be the same way, where we let some sort of central organization own it all because it is an absolute right and necessity to have a place to live. Therefore, we shouldn't let individuals profit off of it. It should all be for the collective good. So
there's definitely a distinction there between like land and housing.
Yes,
for sure.
Also true.
Also, because it's like
very intertwined.
If you have land and you're developing it, like, it's interesting. Like, who benefits from that? Providing housing for people, which is, some would argue, a basic right and a need.
Some do, which they're not wrong, but it doesn't necessarily
I think some level of housing is probably
to me, dude, this becomes necessary. This becomes a slippery slope really quick.
Yeah,
because you go, fine, that's a right. Is an internet connection a right? I don't know. The world sure works off that way.
Yeah.
Is driving and transportation a right? Sure. Food, is that a right? Sure.
And then you get into the whole
clothing,
and
television.
What you're alluding to, but not directly saying, is like there's a scale of quality within each of those as well.
Yes.
So it's like, do you get the most high-speed internet, or do you just get the basic? Do you go back to dial-up? Or it's like, do you get organic, farm-grown veggies, or do you get
canned green beans, which are the worst.
Manufactured, chemical-laden, So it's like, man, okay, even if you did allow for certain, rights or...
Yeah. I think the other perennial debate is Medicare. That's another
healthcare
huge one.
Healthcare is a big one.
Yep, healthcare is huge, and like, where do those rights fall? But again, the United States historically has been like, nope, it's individual, personal responsibility. That's how we're doing it. Interestingly, that wasn't true for education.
Right.
Which, I'm going to get this right because I just read it. Education used to be privately done, you're on your own, until after the Civil War. And that was one of the changes, or one of the movements, I guess, that it wasn't Lincoln. I mean, he kicked it off, but it was whoever comes after him, number 17, his VP. They really, like, when states were coming back in, part of what they did was like, we're going to make schools public and make it available to everyone, because part of it wasn't necessarily indoctrination, but they just realized the value of getting everyone on the same page and creating that shared culture was super important. But before then it wasn't interesting. Okay, part 4, responsibility. This is important. And I often talk a lot about that. Like, freedom, you have to pair that with responsibility. And I think that's super, super important. And so the founders, they didn't just hand out those deeds. Remember we were talking about that, what was it called? The Homestead Act of 1862. Mm-hmm. They went, no, you had to improve the land. And if you didn't get the claim. And so I think...
Did they kick you off of it, or you just didn't get to own it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Both?
Probably depends on the situation.
Sounds like both.
They'd probably give it away to someone else and then they would kick you off. Yeah. And that other person would be responsible for removing you. Of course, you wouldn't care if you weren't improving it or doing anything on it. You're like, okay, whatever. I guess some speculators would care. But again, like the freedom with stewardship is the combination that works the best.
The quote in Spider-Man is just like rattling around in my brain. With great power comes great responsibility, something like that.
Yeah. I think that's true. And I think with great freedom is that same. You have to pair those two things together. It's really important within reason for all of it. Like, hopefully that's understandable. We're not talking about absolute freedom. That doesn't exist. And we're not also talking about absolute responsibility. That's unreasonable. So what does responsible real estate investing look like now? It means being a good landlord. It's not a charity, but there's that stewardship piece. Like you want to take care of the people who are living there. I think that's one of the reasons why we have people who are making statements about housing's all right and we should just publicize it. Publicize it.
Publicize?
No. Make it public. Make it shared. Common. Publicize it?
Publicize? No, it's publicized. Well, no, that's publishing.
That's a different thing. Also, you got to maintain your assets, right? That's important. And so take care of the people who are living it, take care of the asset itself, and ideally selecting good operators and honoring your role as a passive investor as well, I think is important. And I think anyone who just extracts without reinvesting their mortgage, like they're mortgaging their future and they're not stewarding well. I think that's important. And we've seen both landlords and investors in this area over the years where like, yeah, you get in trouble for that and you get a bad name. And that's why they try to pass a whole bunch of rules, which I don't know. I would love it if we lived it where that was always the mindset of like, man, I want to do what's best regardless of what's written. That's not the case. Yeah. So we come in and we create these deterministic rules. It's very interesting. Just kind of philosophically, like when you talk to someone who, what's an example? Someone wants to get in shape. Okay. There's like, you can go down the route of, okay, I'm going to make for you this exact meal plan, eat all of this. I'm going to make for you a workout routine. I'm going to tell you when to sleep. And like, you can corral them with all of these rules and go, now you need to follow it. Or you inspire them to say, man, your life is going to be so much better if you're healthy. You're going to live longer. You're going to hang out with your kids. You'll be able to do these different activities. And you don't actually give the prescription on how to do it. You change the mindset, and then they're going to naturally, are they going to eat absolutely perfectly? No, but they're going to eat better. They're going to exercise more. They're going to get their sleep because they want that thing. Yeah, as opposed to someone, and we see this with our kids, where we'll set up rules and they're like, this is the worst.
It's like that extrinsic or intrinsic motivation is.
And I would love, and unfortunately, and I just don't know how to solve it. The way our system currently works is the only leverage is to create those outside rules.
Parameters.
That's part of the reason why education was so important.
Because it's way harder to intrinsically motivate someone.
Well, that was what I loved about the education piece, right? It was like, hey, we're going to grow these kids from little kids to when they're older to like
productive citizens.
To do whatever they're going to do. And I feel like we've gotten, which is hard because different people have different priorities and that's the balance in the United States. Like we're okay with saying, yeah, I get that that's important to you, not important to me.
Sure.
Don't teach my kid that. I'll take care of it or whatever.
Yeah.
Just getting to the whole, should be able to choose your school to go with one that aligns with your values, but that's a different.
Yeah. Different soapbox.
Thankfully, we had the freedom to pay money to not
send them somewhere else.
Send them where we want to send them. Yeah. It's very complicated. And I actually have a hunch over the next 250 years, it's just going to get more complicated.
Yeah.
And part of it is because we're just creating these rules to try to corral. And as values change and drift over time, those rules are going to drift with it. And I don't know, it
is super interesting. What would be fascinating, this is a totally different topic, But
dude, as long as it's America-based, we're good.
Yeah, super interesting to guess, just suppose, like, okay, looking ahead out into the future, another 250 years. Like, what would property law look like, or ownership look like, or stewardship? Like, knowing that more and more resources will be taken up or used, or there won't be as much land available, like at what point does it hit that tipping point?
Yeah, so the problem with that type of thinking, and what you got to wrap your mind around, is that it's not a static market.
Right.
It's dynamic. Like you're headed down the track of like, well, what if technology and transportation also stays the same?
Yeah,
or if your level of consumption or energy consumption all stays the same. It's not going to.
Yeah.
Like I can definitely imagine a future where it takes. We talked about this. Oh my gosh, it was weeks ago. We were talking about how, remember, information, it used to travel at the speed of force.
Yep.
And then a new technology was invented, the telegraph, and it was almost instant.
Yeah.
Right?
So
and
fast.
it changed everything. Within the next 250 years, we're going to have something like that. I don't know what, communication is already pretty stinking fast.
Sure.
But I think there's going to be another level of it. I
yeah.
think there's going to be another level for transportation as well. I think there's going to be another level for energy consumption.
Yeah.
I was listening to another podcast and they were talking about nuclear power and the inventions and the improvements that are going on there. It is not outside the realm of possibility that we all have mini nuclear power plants sitting in our house.
That's crazy.
That's powering electric vehicles and everything else. And like, we're just like, yeah, no, we don't do solar anymore. We don't need to, because we got these highly efficient little nuclear things. And it's not the power plants from yesteryear. Like they don't have the same issues, problems, whatever. Like that will or whatever. It's like you have one in a block, because I forget what it was. Like they were talking about the size of it. It's not very big. Like, yeah, it powers like 5,000 homes for years and years. Like
it's wild.
You're going to have that kind of stuff. And you just be like, yeah, it's going to change so much. And we're going to have, I hope in the next 250 years, vehicles that fly. And so imagine, this was the whole Back to the Future thing, right? Where it was like, or whatever, a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
Star Wars, I think, also messed with it. Like right now, everything's in 2D. We're all in the same plane. Imagine you add the fast cars, they're 250 feet.
Highways in the air.
That's not high enough. They're 1,000 feet in the air. Medium speed's this speed. And like, and you can suddenly go places directly so much faster, whatever.
Yeah.
And I also have a hunch we are going to trend more towards corporate ownership. And I actually see happening as well is a big spread between the haves and the have-nots. That I could see where the wealth distribution becomes
just continues
way more uneven. People who are doing well, man, like life's gonna be great. They're gonna love it. They're gonna like, things are great. And the people who are struggling, I think, are really gonna struggle. And as a nation, we're going to keep trying to bounce around, trying to figure that out. And we're going to do it through these external rules to try to put people up. I would not be shocked if in 250 years we have some sort of universal basic income. And you're going to have a large percentage of the population like, yep, it's great. I throw on my VR headset, get my entertainment, and then I use part of my U-bit to have food come to me, and it's all good. And there'll be some of us who go, oh my gosh, you call this a life? And I'm like, yeah. It's great. I don't have to work. I can just live, entertain myself. Everything's great.
Weird.
And then I think you'll have another part of the population where it's like, no, we're off traveling the world, doing stuff. And they don't even care about the U-bit because they own other assets and are able to use those to pay for their things. And you'll have a bunch of other people who are working. And that's my very uneducated guess.
Strange.
250 years is so far out in the future. I think the U.S. will still be around. I will say that.
Gosh, I hope so.
In a couple weeks, we're going to talk about the Civil War because I'm finishing up that book. But I think we'll still be around. I think. I also would not be shocked to find out that we're 3 separate nations, where you have the 2 coasts are their own things, and then you do have this middle block that might actually be 1, 2, or 3 different countries. But I feel like we've seen that model in Europe, and we're all like, no, like it's better together, man. And so I'd be shocked if that happens. Plus, I'm like, physically, how does that actually happen anymore? Like, again, back in the day, it was like everyone to arms. Like, dude, that's not a thing.
That's not really a thing.
Drone wars everywhere. Just trying to like, I don't tangibly, physically see how that can happen. But I'm also missing some technology. So I just don't know. Man, I would love Star Trek Future, which I get is actually like, now that I've watched it older, I'm like, man, this is highly political and relational. And just they take a very collectivist stance on it. And everything I think about. I could see us going in that direction as well. It's very un-American, but you know what?
Yeah, it's more socialist kind of.
Oh, 100%. But like in a good way.
Yeah, it's like a benevolent.
It's utopian in the sense that none of us are getting paid, but we're still going to work hard and do our rules because we believe in doing that. Which that's historically never happened. But that's part of that education piece. If you can change the mindset, I mean, we do it within our family, right? Our kids don't get paid, and we still have them do chores, and for the most part, they like it. And I mean, we do get income from other sources, but within the household, we don't get paid to do dishes. But we're like, hey, this is good for everybody. Yeah. We're doing it. So like. The model does exist. The question is, does it exist at scale? And so far, the answer has been no.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe something changes.
Well, because you never get 100% participation. And as soon as you have that one person who's like, I don't have to do this, that just creates this like turmoil. Because then there's people on the margin who are like, well, if they don't have to do it, I don't have to do it. And
that's what I'm like. I think you got to have some sort of, if you choose to participate at your level, that you're able to, like, man, you can have anything you want.
Yeah.
Like, we can provide it all because we somehow have figured out Star Trek style how to manufacture everything. And if you don't, you don't.
Yeah.
And so that's your incentive.
Sure.
Maybe. I don't know, man. This stuff's...
I don't know. It gets into like human rights though. And then it's like, well, you can't kick someone out. Like there's basic necessities. They have to have them.
Yeah, which will constantly be escalating.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Wow. Interesting.
Where was I?
That did go deep.
That's what we're going for. Okay. So we've talked about all these things. There have been historical issues with everyone getting to participate. There's been redlining, I think, which was back in the day. I believe this was lender related. They would put red lines on maps, but like, we don't do loans to these sections of the neighborhood or to these people. Yeah. Groups, and not good. We've been trying to stamp that out. I think it's been fairly successful. I'm sure that's not 100% true, but I think it's been pretty successful. There's restrictive covenants. Those are within neighborhoods saying you can and can't do certain things.
Sure.
There just have been there have been issues, and for the most part, I think like the anti-discrimination rules have been good. I think not for the most part. I think they have been good. And there are probably places where they can go further. And I know me as a company, there's certain things where I go, yeah, I know we don't have to, but we're going to. And I think that's ultimately we try to run by the golden rule. Well, what would I want to happen in my situation?
Yeah.
And so that's a mindset thing. So 250 years, man. Yeah.
Yay.
I like it. And I think that personally, individual ownership is way better than centralized control.
Yeah.
Not perfect, not saying it is, but I think it's way better than that. And I think the deed and the ability to own is one of the most powerful financial documents, instruments that we have. And it's super important. And that just helps with that mindset piece of it. And I think that when you have freedom, it's important to recognize the responsibility and the stewardship that comes with it, and to treat it well. Because if you don't, there's another quote by another founding father. It's like you can have your freedom if you can keep it. That's a Benjamin Franklin quote, right? You can. How does it? Something about. Oh my gosh, I'm butchering it.
Yeah.
You can have your freedom if you can keep it, or something like that. That's the same thing. Yes, freedoms are awesome, and if we steward it well, we'll get to keep it. And if we don't, it's going to be taken away. So. And I think, unfortunately, there's been some bad actors, which is why we watched it erode over time. But that's okay. So my call is to steward it better and steward it well. And pass on your portfolio and this freedom and this awesome country we have to the next generation, and to teach them to respect it and understand it so that they will continue to steward it well and take care of people. So there you go. So with that, happy birthday, America. Happy 4th of July. And thanks for listening. Have a great week.